When my sister Naya invited us to her baby shower, I was genuinely excited. She was 8 months pregnant with her first child, little girl, and we were all over the moon. My parents had been helping her get the nursery ready, and I had spent the past 2 weeks crafting decorations and ordering custom cupcakes. I even found these tiny pink baby booties that made her cry when she opened the box. She's always been emotional, especially since the pregnancy. But that moment felt so real and full of love. The shower was on a Sunday afternoon. We were running a little late, which stressed me out more than I wanted to admit. I had helped. Naya planned the whole thing, and I didn't want to walk in after the games had already started. Micah, my husband, kept telling me it was fine, that no one would notice. I remember looking over at him as we pulled into her driveway and thinking how lucky I was. He's always calm when I'm spinning in circles. The moment we walked inside, everything seemed perfect. There were gold and pink balloons twisted around the doorway, soft music playing, and laughter echoing from the living room. My mom, Maurice, greeted us first with a big hug, her hands still dusted with flour from the kitchen. She whispered something about the cake layers sinking, then waved us in like we were royalty arriving at the castle. I spotted my dad turn, sitting with my uncle and laughing over some inside joke I didn't understand. My cousin Kyra was already sipping lemonade and pointing out how fancy the cheese platter looked. Naya looked absolutely radiant. She wore a simple white dress with a pink sash across her belly, and her curls bounced when she hugged me. She looked happy, comfortable, safe. And then I saw Mika's face. He was standing just a few steps behind me, frozen. His eyes weren't on the cupcakes or the gifts or even Naya. They were locked on her husband, Alan, who was across the room, chatting with my brother near the kitchen island. Yalan looked like he always did, clean-cut, friendly, confident. He was holding a glass of iced tea and laughing at something someone had just said. I turned back to Micah, confused. His jaw was clenched tight. Something in his expression wasn't right. Not confusion, not curiosity. It was something closer. To fear. He leaned in close to me, his voice barely louder than a breath. We shouldn't have come. At first, I thought he was joking. I gave a nervous laugh and whispered, "What are you talking about?" He didn't smile. He didn't blink. Okay? His hand touched the back of my arm and stayed there like a warning. "Not here," he said. "I'll tell you on the way home." Heart dropped. The room didn't feel light and joyful anymore. It felt too bright, too loud. I suddenly noticed the way Naya kept glancing at Yolone, as if making sure he was still nearby. I saw my mom refolding napkins that were already folded, and my dad checking the windows like he was expecting someone else to arrive. I hadn't noticed any of it until that moment. I tried to stay present, tried to enjoy the games and the laughter. But I couldn't stop watching Micah. He barely touched his plate. He was polite, of course, but his eyes never left Yolan. Every smile he gave was fake. Every conversation he had was forced. My husband is not a dramatic man. He doesn't panic easily. So for him to act like this, it meant something was very, very wrong. The rest of the baby shower felt like walking through someone else's dream. I played the part of the happy big sister. I handed Naya the gifts. I took pictures of her cutting the cake. I smiled when she hugged me goodbye, but all I could think about was what Micah saw, what he knew, why he whispered those words to me, like we were being watched, why he refused to explain anything until we were alone. My sister's baby shower was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the beginning of something dark, something none of us were ready for. On the way home, I didn't even have to ask. I just stared at Micah in the passenger seat silently, begging him to tell me what he meant. He didn't look back. Not yet. He just kept driving, his hand tight on the steering wheel. Like the truth might explode if he said it too soon. And when he finally did, everything I believed about my sister's perfect life started to fall apart. Before any of this happened, my sister Naya and I were best friends. We weren't just close because we were sisters, we were close because we chose to be. I was 4 years older, so I always felt protective of her. When we were kids, she'd sneak into my room after thunderstorms and fall asleep on my floor wrapped in my old quilt. I used to make her lunches before school just because I liked the way she smiled when she found notes I wrote. It was always her and me against everything. Even when we grew up, that bond never changed. We talked nearly every day, even after I got married and moved across town. She was the first person I told when I was pregnant with my son, and I was the first person she told when she found out about her baby girl. She called me crying at 6:14 in the morning, holding the test in her hand, whispering, "It's real. Elira, it's really happening." Naya had been with Yolan for about 2 years when she told us she was pregnant. I didn't know him well at first, but he made an effort, came to family dinners. He helped my dad fix the shed one summer. I had that easy charm that made people like him quickly. He was the kind of guy who always knew the right thing to say. My mom adored him, especially after he showed up with a bouquet for her birthday, even though Naya said he didn't have to. My dad, who usually kept his distance from men dating his daughters, actually started to respect him. It's called Yolan. Sharp, which was the closest thing to a compliment he ever gave. At first, I thought they were perfect together. Naya looked so alive when she talked about him. She said he was gentle and thoughtful, that he listened more than he spoke. I remember sitting across from her at a coffee shop once, just after they moved in together, and she told me he makes me feel safe, like I can finally breathe. When she told us she was expecting, the whole family rallied behind her. We threw her a small family dinner that night. My dad cooked ribs, her favorite. My mom nearly suffocated her with hugs. I could see it in her eyes. Naya felt seen, supported, celebrated. That moment was pure. Planning the baby shower was our project together. I came over every weekend to help her paint the nursery and pick out decorations. She had this soft theme. In mine, clouds, stars, and moonlight. We stenciled tiny stars across one wall, and she kept stepping back to make sure everything was symmetrical. She joked that her baby was already bossing her around from the womb. It was one of those seasons in life that felt full, like a chapter you never want to end. My husband, Micah, was supportive too. He's quieter than me, more reserved, but he always showed up when it mattered. He listened when I rambled about centerpiece designs. He picked up catering orders without complaining. He even drove 2 hours to pick up hand-carved baby blocks from a woman I found on Etsy. That's the kind of man he is. Reliable, observant, always a few steps ahead. Even when he doesn't speak much. The morning of the baby shower, everything felt normal. I remember standing in our kitchen, checking the RSVP list one more time, even though I had done it 3 times the night before. Micah poured us both coffee and asked if I was ready. I just wanted to be perfect. I told him. He smiled and said, "It already is." I didn't know that he had been holding something back. I didn't know that this day, the one I had been looking forward to for weeks, would turn into something else entirely. I thought we were walking into a celebration, a moment to surround my sister with love and warmth. I had no idea we were walking into the beginning of a secret I wasn't prepared to uncover. Still, that morning, I was full of hope. I packed the diaper cake I had made, double-checked the gift bags, and wore a soft blue dress that Naya once said brought out my eyes. I wanted to look nice in the photos. I wanted everything to go right. Micah drove us, and we talked about nothing important. Traffic, the weather, a funny memory about our son painting the dog with yogurt the day before. It was the kind of conversation that fills space between people who love each other. No warning. No sense of danger. As we pulled into Naya's driveway, I remember seeing her through the window. She was adjusting a vase of flowers, her belly round under a pink sash that said "Mom to be." She looked peaceful. She looked proud. My chest swelled with something soft and bright. I was about to walk into a room full of love and laughter. I was about to celebrate my baby's sister becoming a mother. I had no idea it would be the last time I saw her that calm. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside that house, Something was already unraveling. Something none of us could see until it was too late. The moment Micah said we shouldn't have come, something inside me shifted. My skin prickled. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe he saw someone he didn't like or felt awkward around my family. But his tone wasn't annoyed or uncomfortable. It was alert, tight, the kind of voice someone uses when they're not asking you to listen. Tell him you too. He didn't explain. He just shook his head once, slow and heavy, like he was holding back words that could cause damage. I wanted to press him, but the room was too full, too loud. People were hugging us, handing us drinks, asking how our son was doing. Micah smiled at them, but it didn't reach his eyes. His smile was a mask, and I had never seen him wear one before. I kept watching him as we moved through the crowd. He was scanning the room like someone searching for exits. I saw his gaze fall on Yolan again. Yolan was joking with my dad and cousin Marcus near the kitchen, completely at ease. His hand rested casually on the counter. He laughed freely. He didn't look like a man with secrets. He looked like a father-to-be surrounded by people who loved him. But Mika's expression said something different. He barely blinked. When I reached for his hand, his fingers felt cold. Even though the house was warm, I leaned in again and whispered, "What's wrong with Yolan?" Micah didn't answer. He glanced at me, just for a second, and his eyes said more than his mouth ever could. He didn't trust the room. He didn't trust who might be listening. He shook his head once more. "Not here," he repeated. "I'll explain later." I felt my stomach tighten. Couldn't make sense of it, and the not knowing was starting to crush me. My instincts said to pull Naya aside, ask her if something was off. But what would I even say? "My husband got a weird vibe from yours that would only upset her and maybe ruin her shower. She'd worked so hard for today. She deserved joy. So I stayed quiet. I smiled when people took photos. I handed Naya her gifts one by one as she opened them on the couch. I laughed when she unwrapped a pink bottle warmer and asked if babies really needed this many accessories. Everyone clapped when she unboxed the hand-stitched quilt from our grandmother. But my mind wasn't in the room anymore. Kate watching. Yalone. Every time he smiled, it felt forced to me. Every time he touched Naya's shoulder or kissed her cheek, it looked too perfect. Like he was trying to appear natural. At one point, I caught him glancing around the room, not looking for anything in particular, just scanning. The kind of look that felt like habit, not curiosity. That's when I realized what I was seeing wasn't love or excitement. It was calculation. I caught Micah watching him from across the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. I walked over and pulled him aside near the hallway, next to the coat rack. "Tell me something," I said. "Is this about work?" His face told me I was close to the truth. "Please," I said. "There's something dangerous about Yolan. I have a right to know. She's my sister. She's pregnant. You can't just drop that and stay quiet." He looked at the door, then back at me. "I'll tell you everything. I promise, but I won't say it here. Not around him. Not with Naya and the baby in the middle of it." His voice was steady, but his eyes were heavy with something I couldn't name yet. Not fear, exactly, more like certainty. Like he had already seen the worst of someone and couldn't pretend otherwise. I wanted to drag Naya out of the room and scream at her to explain herself. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and ask what she really knew about the man she was building a life with. But I didn't, because deep down I could feel the ground shifting. And I needed to know how far the drop went before I pulled anyone else into it. So I smiled through the last hour. I took photos. I held her hand during the cake cutting. I let Yolan hug me when we said goodbye. Felt his arm around my back, his words in my ear. "Thanks for coming, Alira." It meant a lot. His voice was smooth. Smooth. I pulled away quickly, pretending I didn't feel the chill crawl up my spine. On the drive home, I didn't speak. I just stared out the window, holding my breath. Micah kept his eyes on the road. Case's silence didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like containment, like he was building a dam behind his lips and deciding when to break it. When we finally pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, I turned to him and said the only words that made sense. Tell me what you... So, he looked at me with a pain I didn't understand yet and said I recognized him. Not as Yolan, as someone else. That was when the pieces started to fall out of the picture I thought I knew. Micah didn't speak right away. He sat there in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, staring ahead like he was still in motion. I waited, barely breathing, as the silence stretched between us. He looked like a man wrestling with something heavy, something too big to say out loud without reshaping everything around him. Finally, he turned to me. I know that face. He said, "Not from work, from a case." I froze. He continued, slow and deliberate. 3 years ago, I was helping with a federal-level investigation. We were building a profile on a man involved in a complex fraud, ring identity theft, fake medical billing, real estate scams. They were using money from fake companies to launder through charities and tech startups. It wasn't just paperwork fraud. It had tentacles. And Yolan, I asked. He wasn't called Yolan back then. His name was Carter Jennings. It's him. I'm sure of it. The name didn't mean anything to me at first. I repeated it slowly, like maybe I'd recognize it if I said it out loud. But all I could think about was Naja, her bright eyes, her growing belly, her new home. And suddenly that perfect picture was cracking. One word from Micah had fractured everything. He disappeared before they could arrest him, Micah said. He vanished. No digital trail, no forwarding addresses. They assumed he left the country or got picked up by someone more dangerous. And then today, I see him handing out sparkling cider like he's just some proud dad to be. My mouth felt dry. Are you absolutely sure he didn't flinch? There were hours of surveillance footage. I watched him talk. I listened to his voice. I saw the way he walked. It's him. I stepped out of the car, needing air, needing distance. My mind spun. Micah was right. My sister's husband wasn't just keeping a secret. He was running from something massive, something that could explode at any moment. And she had no idea. Or maybe she did. Maybe she knew and believed. In him, anyway. The next morning, I called Naja and asked if I could come by. I didn't tell her why. Told her I had a few more things to drop off for the nursery. She didn't hesitate. Her voice was light, cheerful. She had no idea her world was about to tilt. I drove over with a box of books and blankets, but my hands shook the whole way there. I kept rehearsing what I would say, but nothing felt right. How do you tell your sister that the father of her unborn child might be living under a fake name? That he might be a wanted criminal? That everything she's built her future on could collapse? When I arrived, she greeted me at the door in her robe, her hair pulled back, her eyes glowing. She was holding a mug of tea and humming something. Under her breath, "You're too sweet," she said. "You've already done too much for me." I followed her into the living room, sat the box down on the couch, and looked at her. Really looked. She looked so peaceful. She had no idea. "Need to ask you something?" I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. She turned, sensing something was wrong. "What's going on?" I sat down, took a breath, and said it as gently as I could. Micah recognized Yolan. He says he's not who he says he is. He says he's someone named Carter Jennings. Naya's smile faltered. Her eyes dropped to the floor. I watched the blood drain from her face. At first I thought she was going to deny it. She didn't. She walked to the window, pulled the curtain slightly, then let it fall back into place. She turned to face me, and the look in her eyes broke something in me. "You weren't supposed to know." She whispered. Those words hit harder than I expected. "You knew?" "I didn't at first. When we met, he told me his name was Yolan. He was kind, funny, safe. And then one night, after we'd been living together for a few months, he broke down, said there were things in his past that could hurt us, that he used to be someone else. That he got caught up with the wrong people but never committed violence. He begged me not to ask questions. I stood up, heart pounding. "Naya, this isn't about shady friends or bad decisions. If Micah is right, the man you're with might be a wanted criminal." She nodded slowly. "I know. I should have left, but I was already in love. And then I got pregnant. He swore the past was buried, that he would never hurt me. I believed him. I sat back down, stunned. Do Mom and Dad know? No, she said. I couldn't tell them. I kept hoping it would never catch up to us, that he could really start over. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought love could change everything. I reached for her hand. Sometimes it changes us, but it doesn't erase the truth. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't know what to say. She was scared. So was I. But something had to be done. We couldn't protect him at the expense of her safety or the baby's. That night, after I got home, I sat with Micah and told him everything. We agreed on one thing. Naya deserved to be safe. And if Nif Carter was dangerous, we had to act before it was too late. The time for waiting was over. The truth was out. The next move would change everything. 2 days after that conversation with Naja, she called me early in the morning. Her voice was flat, not panicked, but distant. Like something inside her had already disconnected. He knows I've been different, she said. I haven't said anything, but he keeps asking if something's wrong. He can tell I'm not myself. I gripped the phone tighter. Has he hurt you? No, he's not violent. At least, not with me. But he's suspicious. He asked if you said anything too. Me, after the shower, my pulse picked up. You need to get out of there. There was silence for a second before she replied, I know. Later that afternoon, she came over while Yalon was at work. She had a small bag with her, just clothes and some ultrasound photos. Her eyes were red. She hadn't slept. At my kitchen table, holding her stomach like it was the only part of her keeping her grounded. I'm scared, she said. But I can't keep pretending I don't know who he is. Micah came home early. When he saw her, he didn't ask questions. He just nodded once and went upstairs. I followed him. We have to report this, I said. He shook his head, not directly. If we tip them off too aggressively, he'll disappear again. We need to go to someone who can handle this quietly. That evening, Micah contacted someone he trusted from the agency he used to work with. He gave them what information he had, including Jalen's alias, the timeline, and a recent photo. They said they'd start a file and investigate carefully. It wasn't a fast fix, but it was safer than a direct confrontation. Yolan had slipped through the cracks once. We couldn't afford for him to do it again. The next day, Naya called me from a hotel room. He showed up at your place this morning. She said, you weren't home. He left a note on your porch. I rushed back to the house. The note was folded and tucked under the doormat. I opened it with shaking hands. I know what you did. She comes home, or you'll regret this. Don't test me. Micah called the contact again. Things moved faster after that. I put a watch on our address and tracked Jalen's work location. That night, Naya stayed at our house, and we didn't sleep. She laid on our couch holding her belly, watching the ceiling. I sat beside her while Mika checked the cameras every hour. The next afternoon, she got the call. They picked him up outside a restaurant downtown, she said, staring at the wall. He didn't even fight, just put his hands up and smiled like he knew it was coming. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, fear, anger. It all blended together until my chest felt numb. Naya curled into herself, silent for a long time. Do? You think he ever loved me? She asked. I couldn't answer that. I wanted to believe he had in some twisted way. But I also knew love isn't supposed to come with secrets that endanger your family. Love isn't supposed to wear a mask. That night, my mom called. She had heard from my aunt that something strange had happened at Naya's apartment. Rumors spread fast in our family. I told her we'd explain everything soon. Not over the phone. The truth came out in pieces over the next few weeks. Naya stayed with us while she figured out her next move. She filed for sole custody before the baby was born. The case against Yolan Carter was bigger than we'd imagined. He wasn't just running. He was part of a multi-state scheme that had ruined lives. The charges stacked up like a collapsed house. Wire fraud, false identity, conspiracy. It felt surreal when I visited Naya in the hospital after she gave birth to her daughter. She was different, tired, but stronger. She held her baby girl like she was her anchor. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She's safe, Naya said. That's all I care about now. I held her hand and nodded. The hospital room was quiet except for the baby's soft breathing, the kind of silence that feels full instead of empty. Later, she looked up at me. "Thank you," she said, "for not staying quiet." That moment will stay with me forever. There's a part of me that still struggles to reconcile the man we knew with the man Micah revealed. Yolan had fooled us all. But Micah had seen through him in seconds. I'll never forget that look on his face at the baby shower. That quiet alarm. That whisper that changed everything. We had come to celebrate a new life. And in doing so, we uncovered a lie that could have destroyed it. It's been 7 months since that day in the hospital. 7 months since Naya held her daughter for the first time and whispered her name through tears. She named her Iris Hope. She said the name reminded her of growth after storms and of something fragile that still finds a way to stand tall. Naja lives in a small 2-bedroom apartment now, closer to my side of town. The space is modest but warm, with white curtains, thrifted furniture, and a fridge covered in baby milestone magnets. Her life looks different than what she imagined a year ago, but she's learning how to breathe again. She has structure, safety. She has control over her own story for the first time in years. She's back in school, working toward her nursing degree. She studies while Iris naps and works night shifts as a receptionist to make ends meet. She's tired, but she never complains. She moves with purpose. There's a quiet strength in her now that I didn't see before. Not a forced toughness, but the kind that grows when a person survives something they thought would break them. Micah and I help where we can. We watch Iris a few days a week. My parents visit often, slowly understanding the truth in their own way. For a while, my mother didn't want to hear Jalen's name. It hurt her to admit she had trusted him. She felt embarrassed, like she had been played. But over time, she focused on what mattered. Her daughter and granddaughter were safe. My dad rarely speaks about it, but he always brings extra groceries when he visits and checks Naya's locks before he leaves. That's his version of love. Sometimes Naya asks questions I can't answer. Did he ever really mean it? Was I just convenient? How could I have missed it? I tell her the truth, that good people can be fooled by practiced liars. That trust isn't weakness. That wanting to believe someone you love doesn't make you blind, makes you human. The investigation into Carter Jennings is still unfolding. The prosecutors have more than enough to keep him behind bars for a long time. Naya is cooperating as a witness, but the legal team has been careful to keep her and the baby protected. They've offered her assistance programs, counseling, and resources for long-term support. She's not alone in this, and that matters. Sometimes I think back to the baby shower. It's the balloons and the music and the gifts stacked beneath soft, pink ribbons. It looked so perfect. And for a while, I hated how fooled we all were. I hated how good he was at pretending. But now I understand something deeper. The lie wasn't in the decorations or the laughter. The lie was in the silence. The questions that weren't asked. The gut feelings we pushed aside to keep the peace. Micah never once said, "I told you so." He never gloated or criticized. He stood beside me through every difficult conversation. He gave Naya space when she needed it and stepped in when it counted. I always loved him, but after this, I admire him in a way I didn't fully before. He trusted his instincts. He told the truth, even when it hurt. Okay? And because of that, we saved someone we love. Iris is 7 months old now. She's learning to crawl, and she has Naya's eyes. Pig, curious, and full of wonder. When I hold her, I sometimes think about the life she could have had if things hadn't come to light. A life wrapped in secrecy, always one wrong move away from danger. And then I think about the life she will have. A mother who fought for her. A family that stood up even when it would have been easier to look away. That's what this has taught me, that silence is never safer, that love is not measured by how much you tolerate, but by how far you're willing to go to protect the people who matter. That sometimes doing the right thing means tearing something apart to rebuild something stronger. The day Yolan was arrested, Naya cried in my arms, not because she missed him, but because she felt free. That was the beginning of her real story. Not the one built on illusion, but the one built on truth. And if there's anything I've learned through all of this, it's that love alone isn't enough. Love needs honesty. It needs courage. And it needs the kind of people who, when faced with the hardest truths, choose to act anyway. We didn't just walk into a baby shower that day. We walked into a lie. But we didn't stay there. We found the truth. And in the end, that truth gave my sister and her daughter the life they deserve. If this story moved you, or made you think twice about the people we trust, I hope you'll take a moment to share it. These moments, these truths, we don't always talk about them, but they matter. They protect people. They help others feel seen. If you've ever had to make a hard choice to protect someone you love, or you've seen behind a mask someone else didn't notice, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Your voice could be the one someone else needs to hear. If you found value in this story, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more real, powerful stories just like this one. Your support helps this community grow, helps more voices be heard. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to speak the truth, especially when it matters most.